Hey World History, welcome to U15-L5, Basics of World War I Part 3. This is the last video that I will make about World War I. I know. There's a lot to talk about though, especially with World War I. So, your job, you're going to watch this ed puzzle, answer the questions. Questions in blue text are going to be questions that I want you to answer directly on this ed puzzle. Any important concept will be in red text, so please make sure you're following along with your study guide. And if you have any questions, please email us. We are more than happy to help you out. So, describe the social, political, and economic causes and consequences of World War I. So, we kind of went from the beginning of World War I. Now we're kind of skipping over the rest of World War I, and now we're kind of talking about more the end of World War I. I know. There's a lot to talk about with World War I. I skipped over a lot of things. I'm sorry. So, in March 1917, civil unrest breaks out in Russia. There is mass starvation, there is fuel shortage due to the war, and 5 million Russian soldiers are either dead, hurt, or a prisoner of war. Communist leader Vladimir Lenin takes power in Russia November of 1917. That's this dude right here. So he makes a peace pact with Germany, ending the war between Russia and Germany. So ending the war on the Eastern Front. So remember, the Eastern Front is with the border of Germany and Russia, but the Western Front, which is on the border of France and Germany, is still going on. So, with Russia's withdrawal, Central Powers sends all of their troops to fight the Western Front. So, again, where France and Germany's borders meet. In May of 1918, German forces reached the Marne River, which is about 40 miles from Paris. If the Central Powers take Paris, they are the winners. Like we talked about last time, I think in what was that? One video ago or two video ago? Because Paris was like the central command to like France and everything like that. So if Paris falls, all the Allied countries pretty much fall too. But German army is severely weakened. The men fighting are exhausted because they've been fighting since 1914 and it's already the end of 1917. Supplies are also running low for the German army. U.S. troops have also entered the war this time. They only entered in April 6th of 1917, so they haven't been fighting that long. So they're energized, they're not sick of war, they're ready to fight. 140,000 U.S. troops launch a counterattack at the Marne River against the German army. And this is known as the Second Battle of the Marne River, because remember we talked about the first battle of the Marne River. That's where they had like the taxis go and bring the soldiers over to the battle. This is the second battle. So the US had 350 tanks that plowed through German lines. 2 million more US troops came to help the Allied powers, meaning that the Central Power troops were forced to retreat. So the Central Powers were severely weakened even more. In September of 1918, Bulgaria, which was a part of the Central Powers, Bulgaria is right down here in the Balkans, they surrendered. October of 1918, the Ottoman Empire surrenders. Also in October of 1918, Hungary breaks away from Austria. So before it was Hungary, Austria-Hungary were together as one country. Now they're breaking away into two separate countries, one being Austria, one being Hungary. Also in October of 1918, there's a mutiny among German soldiers. And in November of 1918, Kaiser Wilhelm II, who was the leader of the German army and Germany as a whole, was forced to step down as leader. So now we're really getting to the end of the war. So German representatives and French commander Marshal Foch met in a rail car near Paris, and they signed an armistice of the 11th of November, 1918. So an armistice is not the end to a war. It is just an agreement to stop the fighting. So World War I was essentially put on hold. The Allies won, but at what price? So I really like this graph. I believe it comes from your textbook and also Encyclopedia Britannica because it really shows how deadly this war was. So to put it in perspective, there's about 65 million troops involved in World War I. So that's both the Allies and the Central Power together, about 65 million soldiers. 8.5 million soldiers are dead out of that 65 million. So there's about a 7.6 chance of death if you were a soldier in World War I. So you'll see also that the Allies had a lot more soldiers than the Central Powers. They had 42 million compared to just 23 million. And I really enjoy this graph because it really lays out all the death tolls for each of the countries. So remember, the US came in pretty late into World War I, so they hadn't been fighting very much. That's why they only have 116,000 deaths, which is pretty much nothing compared to some of the other countries. Same thing with the Ottoman Empire. They don't have very much. It's not until you start getting into like Italy, Great Britain, Austria-Hungary, France, Russia, and then finally Germany that you see devastating death tolls, especially with Germany, because they lost 1.8 million soldiers. Wow, that's a lot. So the Allies need to make a treaty with Germany to officially end World War I, because we talked about how they made an armistice, but that's just to stop the fighting. Now they need a treaty to actually end the war. So the four main Allied countries meet up to discuss the treaty. So in those four main Allied countries, we have President Woodrow Wilson, who's of the United States. We have George Clemenceau of France. We have David Lloyd George of Great Britain and Vittorio Orlando of Italy. So Russia is not there due to them having a civil war, and Germany and other Central Powers are not invited. So Woodrow Wilson proposes a plan to create worldwide peace, and this became known as the 14 points. Now, I will talk through the 14 points. I'm going to go through them pretty fast until the very end because the last point in the 14 points is the most important. So, number 1, open diplomacy without secret treaties, economic free trade on the seas during war and peace, equal trade conditions, decrease arms/weapons among all nations, adjust colonial claims, evacuation of all Central Powers from Russia and allow it to define its own independence, Belgium to be evacuated and restored, return of the Alsace-Lorraine region and all French territories, readjust the Italian borders, Austria-Hungary to be provided an opportunity for self-determination, meaning they could split into two separate countries, redraw the borders of the Balkan region, creating Romania, Serbia, and Montenegro, creation of the Turkish state with guaranteed free trade in the Dardanelles, which is a water port, the creation of an independent Polish state, which will be very important for World War II, and finally, the creation of the League of Nations. So let's focus on the League of Nations. That is an international association. You can see right here, here's a meeting of all the dudes at the League of Nations. And the goal is to keep peace among the nations. Also to make decisions together as a world, not just the individual countries. Some of you might be saying, hey, that sounds like really familiar. Don't we have that system kind of today? Yeah, we do. Today we call it the United Nations. The League of Nations was before that. That was the predecessor to the United Nations. So the Big Four made the final treaty for Germany to sign, officially ending World War I. It's called the Treaty of Versailles. Now, there are multiple treaties in history called the Treaty of Versailles. This one is specifically the one for World War I. So Germany signed it on June 28th, 1919, 5 years to the day that Archduke Ferdinand was killed. If you remember him from a couple of videos ago, he was the guy who got assassinated and sparked World War I. So in the Treaty of Versailles, there's a bunch of different clauses in it. The one clause that I really want to focus on is the war guilt clause, because this really sets up the tensions for World War II. So in the war guilt clause, it says Germany was forced to accept full responsibility for causing the war. Germany had to pay reparations of about 122 billion marks. Germany had to reduce their military to only 100,000 men, and Germany was forced to return Alsace and the Lorraine to France, which I'll show you on a map in just a little bit here. So Alsace is a part of France. You can see right here it's on the border with Germany. Germany took that region during World War I. They now had to give it back to France. Same thing with the Lorraine region, which is right here. All right, so Germany had to demilitarize around the Rhine River as well. So the Rhine River is a really important river in Europe because it creates a border specifically with like Germany and France, but also like Belgium and the Netherlands too. So demilitarization means that Germany could not like send any troops, like station any troops or build like any military bases along the Rhine River. They had to keep it peaceful and military free. Also, the creation of new countries. So, Poland was a new nation state from German and Soviet territory. And Poland will play a very significant role in World War II. So, here is a map about 1920. So, you will see that some of the borders have definitely changed. Again, we have Austria and Hungary. We also have Czechoslovakia is created out of this as well. Um, So you can see that the countries are a little bit more of what they look like today. So the Austria-Hungary Empire was dissolved into independent nations, like I just said, both Austria and Hungary, but also Czechoslovakia. There's also the Treaty of with the Treaty of Versailles. This led to the breakup of the Ottoman Empire, and Germany had to give up colonies in Africa and Asia as well. So here are Germany's colonies. So this was Germany before World War I. So they did have some colonies in Africa, as well as teeny tiny little colonies in China, which we talked about. Japan wanted those, and also a few islands in the Pacific Ocean. So the League of Nations didn't last very long. It ends by the end of World War II, which would be 1946. We'll talk about that when we talk about World War II. The reason why it ends is because the US Congress does not allow the US to join, although it was President Woodrow Wilson's idea in the first place. So the US Congress believed that the way to keep peace was to keep out of European affairs. And that's why US Congress never allowed the United States to join the League of Nations. There's a lot of political cartoons about the League of Nations during this time period. Here's one of them. So these children are supposed to be the US Senate. They're like fighting. And Uncle Sam's like, wait, I want to go to the League of Nations. They're taking off without me. So yeah, a lot of political cartoons. So African countries really hated the Treaty of Versailles because many of Germany's colonies were split up among other European countries instead of the African nations gaining independence for themselves. So here's kind of a map here showing the League of Nations and who was all a part of the League of Nations. So you'll see that quite a bit of Germany is part, or quite a bit of Europe is part of the League of Nations. You will also see Asian countries are, as well as the colonies in Africa. So the German people really felt targeted after World War I, and this hate is really going to lead to the spark of World War II. The reason why the German people felt targeted because Germany could not pay back its 122 billion marks of damage to the Allies. So Germany had to pay back 122 billion marks, which today is about 500 million US dollars after World War I. What do you think this massive debt is going to do to the German economy? Not good things. It causes hyperinflation. So 130 billion marks equals about 1 US dollar. Yeah, their money was so worthless that these boys here are making kites out of it. Or this dude right here, he's making wallpaper because it was cheaper just to plaster up the money instead of just buying wallpaper. So another thing that made Germany really mad is that France took over Germany's Ruhr Valley, which is located right here in Germany. So France is just right down here. And Ruhr Valley was really important for Germany's economy because there was mining for iron and other metals. Because Germany really didn't have any other major exports at this time besides like metals, and no export meant no money. Here's a more zoomed in of where that's located right here in Germany. So all this leads to the global economic depression called the Great Depression. But we'll talk about that a little bit more with World War II. I'm sure you've learned about it in US history as well, Great Depression, 1930s. So let's wrap this up for today. Today we talked about the armistice, George Clemenceau, Woodrow Wilson, 14 points, Treaty of Versailles, and the League of Nations. Next up, you're going to do the U15-L6 Diary of a War Nurse reading and quiz. That's where you do the reading and then answer the questions about the reading on the little quiz part of it. On U15-L7, that's the World War I video choice. Once you're done with that, you can turn in your U15-L1 study guide because we'll be done with World War I. But make sure you start on U15-L8, which is your study guide part 2, which is all about World War II. Then after that, you're going to go on to U15-L9, Basics of World War II Part 1. That is one of my Edpuzzle videos where I'm going to explain to you the basics of World War II because there's a lot to talk about. But if you have any questions, comments, or simply want to learn more, please let us know. We're happy to help out. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.